Ladies and gentlemen of the YouTube world, what is poppin', locking, and what is dropping? Welcome everyone back to another wonderful video to the channel, and today, a special one actually. So I'm going to do something I haven't done in a very long time, actually since maybe week 5 or something. I gotta go back and look, but I'm going to be making guys another recipe video. It's been quite some time since I've done a recipe video, so I think I'll go ahead and give it you guys once more. Huge pause on that one. So today I'm going to be making a very special recipe, and a recipe that's actually helped me lose a ton of weight. It is very nutritious, packed with protein, anabolic, not the lowest in calories, but the protein really makes up for it, and you can customize it to however you like. Think of it as a breakfast pizza in a way, but the Italians call it a frittata. That's right. We're going to be making an anabolic frittata today. If you guys don't know what a frittata is, it is an Italian-based breakfast dish that consists of eggs and dairy products. Usually eggs and heavy cream, and you can top it with cheese and tomatoes and basil, and you can customize it like a pizza in a way. So frittatas are phenomenal breakfast item. It's an egg dish that's not just scrambled eggs with whatever, like bacon and so on, but instead you can create this breakfast dish and morph it into a way of less boring. So I have a specific recipe that I do with my frittatas, and this is going to be obviously the anabolic way of doing it as well. So which means it's going to be high in protein and lower in fat, as well as lower in calorie. Although this particular one isn't that low in calories, but for most breakfast items, this is pretty good for the size of it, for the amount of calories you guys are getting. But we'll go over all the nutrition facts later on in this video. So I figure I'll go ahead and let's get this party started with making the anabolic frittata. See you guys when I see you guys. So the first thing we're going to do is lay out our ingredients. So we're going to start off with basically the base of the frittata, and for this you only need 3 ingredients. But the most important thing you're going to need is your food scale, because you want to measure everything to your particular macros that you need to this dish to get accurate results when you put it into the oven. So the first thing you're going to need, as I fondled them in your face, we're going to need some eggs. These are just large eggs. You use jumbo, large, whatever the extra large, whatever the terms are for them, but 2 whole eggs. The next thing you're going to need is some egg whites. This is part of what makes it an anabolic frittata is the egg whites, but we do need the eggs with the yolks for some omega-6 fat, because as in calorie deficit diets, we try to stay away from fats, but just a little bit can also incorporate all of those nutrients from the good fats, like from egg yolks, from avocados, grapeseed oils, and so on. But egg whites is definitely what's going to be needed for this. So the next thing we're going to need for this recipe is some low-fat cottage cheese or no-fat cottage cheese. Now, as I open it, you can see on the inside it looks like sour cream. That's because I blended it. This recipe will make it look a lot better if you blend the cottage cheese, because you'll get the kernel in the frittata and it looks kind of funny. So I would recommend blending your cottage cheese before you get to one with this recipe, just to make it a lot better consistency and also keep a lot more moisture into the frittata itself. Now we're going to go over the toppings for the frittata, or what goes into the frittata. This is a meal prep thing, so I made a bunch of turkey sausage. So for this one, I cooked some turkey sausage before, and then I put a third of a pound of each going into the frittata. So I have turkey sausage for mine. And the last thing that I usually put in mine, as well as some spinach. So I'll show you guys how to present all that and how frittatas are typically made. So I guess let's go ahead and get into the preparation. Also, one thing I forgot to mention before we go into the prepping of the meal is the utensils you'll need throughout the process. So you're going to need a whisk. Small one, big one, doesn't matter. You just need a whisk, a good size mixing bowl to put all your ingredients in, and a smaller oven-safe pan or a slim bowl or slim pot, because you want it thin so it cooks evenly throughout and the moisture stays in there, versus having a deeper dish. What it'll do is it'll take a little bit longer to cook, so you want to keep it pretty thin. So a pan like this would be perfect, or if you have some sort of baking pan that's thin, then that'd be really good as well. Alright, so for the preparation, first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to turn on our scale. You can see it's in 0. I usually keep it in ounces just to keep it Americanized. Sorry for everyone else in the world. It was just, unfortunately, something we have to deal with here in the United States. So we're going to put our mixing bowl onto the scale like so, and we're going to 0 it like that. And so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put your eggs in. You don't really have to measure these, just hit over here. So, crack an egg. I usually keep it on a flat surface like so. Boom. Perfect. That. Put it in the bowl like so. And make sure there are no egg yolks, or sorry, make sure there's no egg shells in the bowl as well. So after you put your eggs in, you're going to go ahead and 0 that scale back up again. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is add our egg whites here. Go ahead and give it a nice little shake. Oh, focus. All right. So next, you'll see it in the nutrition facts. There's 20 servings per container. So want to divide by 5, which I usually do. Then we do 5 servings. So one serving is about 46 grams. So we want to multiply that by 5. Or if you can use 3 tablespoons. Why ounces on here, I don't know. Or another thing you can do on the bottom here is 32 ounces. To divide 32 by 5, and that gives you the number that you need. So for this particular recipe, we need 6.4 ounces of egg whites. Perfect. 6.4 ounces of egg whites. Once you do this, then you could usually do it by eye, but this particular case for the video editing, we're gonna measure it in the bowl. So next we're gonna do is add our low-fat cottage cheese. By the way, that's blended. As you can see on the serving sizes here, there's 4 servings per container. I do have 2 containers, so you got 113 grams per serving. So out of the 2 containers, I usually do about 1.5 servings. If you look at the ounces, you got 16. So next we're gonna add 4 ounces of cottage cheese into this dish. So you can use a knife for this. So all we're gonna do is just 4 ounces. Like I said, I have 2 containers of these, so if you need more, then we'll probably have to get some more here. Yeah, get a container, a little bit more. All right, now we got 4 ounces of cottage cheese. You go ahead and turn your scale off. This next part I didn't really mention in the video, but this is where you would season your frittata. So because you can use whatever seasonings you guys like. Seasons do not have that much calories in it, so I'm gonna add some Himalayan sea salt in there. And everything's to taste. I don't really measure seasonings out unless it's because my seasonings are pretty simple. Just some black pepper. I do like black pepper, so I do put a little bit more than usual. And then last, I have some granulated garlic, or as us Italians call it, or Northerners call it, gualic. After you add your seasonings, you go ahead and take your whisk. You're gonna mix it up. The proper term is to beat the eggs and the cottage cheese together, and as well as the egg whites. So you want to make sure you're banging the whisk a little bit against the bowl so you get proper mixing. And your consistency should look like this. Cool. Now to more preparation. So for the next portion is going to be assembling your so-called frittata. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my bowl of turkey sausage over here, and we're going to be getting a 1/3 of a pound onto here. But first, before we do that, any kind of leafy vegetables, you want to go ahead and just put on your pan. So I don't really need to measure spinach out just because spinach has low no calories, but I usually put about a couple ounces of spinach on there. So when you assemble your frittata, any kind of leafy vegetables, so like spinach, kale, basil, or fresh basil, you want to put that on first just because it creates more of a bedding for everything. The next thing we do, we're going to be measuring out a 1/3 pound of turkey sausage. So I do have the sausage here on a scale, and there we go. So that's about 1/3 pound of turkey sausage. And then for the final piece of resistance, you're gonna give this a nice little mixing right before you pour it onto there, just because you want everything incorporated before you pour it on there. And simply all you do is just pour. So you don't have to be slow with it. You can just dump everything in there. Just make sure it doesn't get on your whatever surface that you're pouring it on. Get as much out as it possibly can, like that. And then what you're gonna do is just make sure all the egg mixture gets around into the bowl, pot, whatever you put this oven safe dishing. Just like that, you're ready to put in the oven. Dish up your frittata into your oven safe pan, bowl, pot, whatever you want to put it in. Next thing you do, your oven should be preheated to 325. You want it on super low temperature because the slow cooking will actually keep the moisture into the dish. You go ahead and put it in the oven, and with the low temperatures, you want to bake it for 17 to 20 minutes. So one thing you really want to check for is make sure there's not a lot of moisture on the top. But most importantly, if you check the edges or the rim around the frittata, you want to make sure that it's concaving in. So once we take it out of the oven, I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so it's been about 20 minutes. Sometimes you have to do a little bit over, just depending on how you like the top. But you want to make sure that there's no jiggles on the top or any liquid motions, I should say, on the top. If that makes sense. If it doesn't, I'll show you once it comes out of the oven. So we're going to go ahead and turn the oven off here. Grab me a little fancy tool to pick up the pan. And just like that, we got ourselves the frittata. You're going to put it on top of your whatever placement you have. I was saying about the edges, you want to make sure they look like this. So you can tell it's like going into the pan or bowl a little bit. You can see little gaps and so on. So that's one way to indicate that it's done. Another one is to, when you look it over, just make sure there's not a lot of liquid on top as well. It's a nice solid surface. You will see some things that from the glare from the light that look like liquid, but it's usually from the cottage cheese making a form look like that. But you want to look around and make sure that everything looks firm and not very liquidy. And that's how you can tell that your frittata has been completed. Now, usually I'll eat it straight from the pan because this pan is a little difficult to get things out of, but you should be able just to get a spatula in there, dig it out, and then if you have a flipping pan, then you can just put it on a plate and enjoy it for yourselves. Officially completed making the Annabolic frittata. So, we're going to go ahead. I'm eating straight from the pan just because I don't feel like getting any more dishes out. And so we got ourselves a spoon here. Go ahead, dig in. A nice serving of spinach, turkey sausage, as well as the egg itself. A little hot because it just came out of the oven. But let's go ahead and give it a shot. So right off the bat, the moisture levels are perfect. This thing is so just fluffy and it goes super well. The turkey sausage gives it a nice umami, as well as the spinach for extra earthiness and some fiber in there. So it's very good, very swell, very fantastic, and very spectacular. And it's very hot. The seasoning, it's super basic, but with the salt, pepper, and garlic, but let me tell you, it goes really well with the dish. So, but while we do that, I'd say let's go over some macros. So this dish consists of 627 calories with 84 grams of protein, 25 grams of fat, and 10 grams of carbs. Now, let me tell you, those are some pretty impressive macros for a dish this big. And overall weight of everything is about 1,050 grams. So, as you can see, it's a pretty big dish, and it's a lot of food. For 627 calories and 84 grams of protein, it's nuts. So, this is a very good anabolic dish for breakfast if you guys are just sick of scrambled eggs and turkey bacon and whatever you got, an oatmeal, I guess. So it is very good for that. But if you go into a little bit more macro factor, this is the app I used because of Hitmeal betraying me and losing all my data. So I did have to switch over to macro factor. But macro factor gives you a lot more details with everything, which was really smexy. 54 grams of fiber for everything, which is really cool. 8.8 grams of sugar. Omega-3 fats, 0.8 grams. Omega-6, 1.5 grams. Again, there's not a ton of fat in here, but all your proteins are really good. You got 100 or 84 grams of protein with everything. And all the proteins are broken down as well. Vitamins, you got a decent amount of B2, folate. It's got a decent amount. Vitamin, it's in a crap ton of vitamin K. Iron's pretty up there. Magnesium's pretty up there. Sodium's kind of up there, but you can reduce it by removing some salt from it and so on. But macro factor breaks everything down super well and gives you exactly what you're looking for when it comes to all your typical kind of nutrients. But that's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen of the YouTube world. I hope this recipe inspires you to make it yourself. Go ahead and give it a try. Again, you could change the toppings, whatever you like. The more Italian traditional one, they usually use basil, cherry tomatoes if you cut them in half. Now, the cherry tomatoes, make sure you put them on after the egg, just because you can get more of a roasting on the tomatoes if you do it that way, because the eggs will cover the tomatoes. Excellent protein choices. Turkey sausage is great. Turkey, bacon, normal sausage. You can do ground beef, ground chicken. It doesn't even have to be a breakfast. You can even make this into a lunch, dinner type of thing as well. But the base of it is just the egg and the cottage cheese. And then after that, you can put whatever you want on it. Make sure it stays healthy though, keeps up with what macros you're trying to look for, and keep that protein high, man. So that's pretty much it for the rest of the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the recipe. Make sure that inspires you to help you lose some weight. And I'll catch you guys on whatever I upload next.